Welcome to another episode of the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. I'm Dr. John Devereaux, along with Mr. Glenn Curry. And today we're going to be talking about stepping out of your comfort zone and growth. Now, as you guys know, we always start off the episode with the quote of the week. So the quote of this week is going to be, "A comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there." And that quote's by John Assaraf. So Glenn, you and I both have many conversations off mic about stepping out of our comfort zone and, different endeavors. But when you see or hear a quote like this, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is that I think most people are so comfortable in their comfort zone that they're waiting on like the perfect moment of what they think that opportunity is going to look like. If you want to be successful, right, you have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And stepping out of your comfort zone. Because like you said, nothing ever grows. You're not going to see any opportunity. You're not going to see any growth. You're not going to see any change in your life if you're stuck on what you're used to. If you're still hanging around the people that you're used to, if you're still doing the same things that you used to, you're going to it's like the old saying, right? They say insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results, right? If you're doing the exact same thing over and over, you're not going to have any growth. It's going to be the exact same thing. So you have to start, networking with different people so that you can get opportunities that you wouldn't get if you stay, in your comfort zone.
And what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that, it's kind of like a mindset. I believe that, life is all about that constant growth. And, in order to grow, a lot of times you do have to step out of your comfort zone. Now, I think that growth has to be not only a mindset, but also a lifestyle. You have to look for those opportunities to kind of challenge yourself and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, as you alluded to. And being in those uncomfortable situations is what's going to foster naturally that growth within yourself. So, I trying to think of certain areas. So give me an example. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but give me an example of a time when you kind of stepped out of your comfort zone.
I think one of the times for me is with the podcast, man. Like, I'm a shy person by nature. Like, I do not like being in front of the camera. I do not like speaking. I don't like public speaking. But I think that I have a story that needs to be told, right? So for me, it's putting myself in a situation to tell that story so that people can hear it, right?
You know what? I actually kind of agree with you on that. For myself personally, I'm also a little bit more reserved. So for us to have this podcast and, these conversations that we do have, that is really a step outside of our comfort zone. I never really kind of thought about it like that.
But yeah, I think we're both introverts. That's why.
Give me an example of in business where you had to kind of step outside of your comfort zone.
I would say meeting new people. Like I said, I'm shy by nature, right? And I talked about it on previous podcasts, whereas networking is everything. For me, that's uncomfortable. Putting myself out there, speaking to people that I don't know. So it's very uncomfortable. But again, if I want to see myself get to that next level, I have to learn to put myself in more uncomfortable situations. Because like I said, I got a plateau, not a plateau, I got a goal that I'm trying to reach. So for that, I got to keep putting myself out there.
And I think, what you said earlier that, you have a story to tell that needs to be told.
Yeah.
And I believe everybody, has a story that's unique to themselves. Tempest kind of spoke on that a little bit last week, which was like the title of the episode was, the stories within you. And I do believe that everyone does have a story that can be used to kind of motivate the next person. So I guess that's really why it is very, important that people do tend to step out of their comfort zone and, accept those challenges when they present themselves, or as I mentioned earlier, even seek out those challenges.
Yeah. And I think like for you, right, I was just thinking about that the other day. Like, I know you personally, right? So I know, you're like me, you're shy. You don't like speaking in front of large crowds, but you're talking to students every single day. You're a professor. So I can only imagine how, that may feel for you, how uncomfortable that may feel. I mean, why is it that you put yourself in that situation every day?
Well, see, now it's a little bit different. I've been in my teaching career for, 6 years now. But when I first started, I was extremely nervous. I mentioned on the first episode, I really hated public speaking. So, going into, being an instructor or professor just seemed like a weird career choice, honestly. But
Right.
one of the things, and I think this is what helps with, stepping out of your comfort zone and seeking out these opportunities, is I did a lot of prep work, before each lecture.
Yeah.
I'm rehearsing that lecture like over and over and over. And I'm anticipating naturally questions that I think students would ask so that I'm prepared. Now I've gotten to a point where, I'm not nervous or anything at all before I start talking or giving a lecture. So I'm a lot more relaxed. But, that first year, it was tough. I
I can
can't even
imagine. And
lie.
you know what? It kind of gets me to thinking about when we had the episode with Pam, and she talked about becoming like a new you, right? In a sense, right? Becoming like I guess like a more assertive you, a different you to kind of get to that next level. Is that something that you think that you had to kind of get to, like create a new John to be able to stand in front of students all day?
So I wouldn't say that I had to reinvent myself, but I believe that over time you just become more confident in whatever it is that you're doing. There's this
Yeah.
this quote that I heard that said that confidence is not a personality trait. We typically think of a confident person and think that they're confident in all areas, but confidence is really like a skill. You kind of train yourself to be confident in certain areas, whether that's through proper preparation or whatever else it might be. So, like for you, for instance, like you mentioned that you are a very introverted type of individual.
I
So,
am.
how did you develop that confidence to, start going up and, introducing yourself to people? And, I read your Instagram, so I know you're closing multi-million dollar deals, doing over 1 million in real estate.
Yeah.
So, how
Right.
were you able to get from point A of, not wanting to, reach out to individuals and be off to yourself, to now realizing the importance of, networking and then walking in that confidence to close those deals? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's simple, man. It's one thing is I'm always imagining myself where I want to be, right? So if I want to be a millionaire, if I want to close these deals, I'm already imagining myself there. So it's just me reenacting what I already know, right? So if I'm talking to somebody, if I'm closing a deal, I am supposed to be talking to that person,
Hmm.
right? So I'm confident. It ain't even really a cocky thing. It's just I'm confident in what it is that I'm saying, right? So if I'm closing a deal with somebody, I already did my homework, right? I
Yeah.
already know what I'm talking about. I already did the numbers. So if I'm talking to you, I'm just confident in anything that I'm saying.
I mean, I think confidence is really just tied into your level of preparation.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like teaching the material that I teach, I'm thoroughly prepped in it. So you can walk in confidence knowing that you've done your due diligence.
Yeah.
So when I think of like the business that we both have in common, which is photography,
Yeah.
90% of it is really just being confident in what you're doing.
Yeah.
As long as the people that you're photographing believe that you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
then it's going to be a good day for the most part.
Yeah. And you know what? It reminds me of this quote I heard. It says that well, entrepreneurs, we learn 40% of what it is that we need to know, and we figure out the rest of the 60% along the way.
Aside from even just running your own business, but with anything that you're really doing in life. So when you set goals for yourself, the purpose of the goal is not what you attain, but what you become along the way. So
Yeah.
like for me in my doctoral program, the goal wasn't, well, the goal was to get that degree, but that piece of paper pales in comparison to the lessons that I've learned by going through that journey. By going through that process, it really taught me that a lot about myself. Like I could do whatever I put my mind
Right.
to. That's the main takeaway from that. Like whatever I put my mind to and devote myself to fully, I know I can accomplish. So that gives you a level of confidence in and of itself. And when you talk about like
Absolutely.
stepping out of your comfort zone, when you do that and you have small successes, it makes it easier for you to continue to take steps further out of your comfort zone. So, and then, just in business, if there's certain things that you're just not good at, you just hire people to do it for you.
Right.
So,
So and you know what? That's a great point. And that's the thing. Like we can't be good at everything that it is that we do, right? In
right,
business, in our business, whatever the case may be. You have to be an expert in hiring experts.
exactly.
So I mean, yeah. So you're right, man. If you can't do it yourself, hire somebody. I look at me in my profession, right? I look at, all the mentors I had, all the resources, things like that to kind of get me to where I'm at today, right? Then you look at you on the flip side, you're a professor, so you're teaching. This is what you do for a living. Have you had the same type of mentorship along the way in your profession?
Oh, absolutely. My first year teaching, you're still kind of learning your own teaching
Yeah.
style. So what I was able to do was really, and we had an amazing department, so I was able to learn a lot from the other professors in my department. So like for instance, Dr. Phil, she's my mentor. She was just so relatable in the way that she taught her classes. Dr. Lynn was always able to find like the fun in economics. Dr. Melkumian was super knowledgeable and always willing to help. And Professor Mitchell always put the material in a very simple terms for the students. So I was able to take bits and pieces from all of these amazing women who mentored me, which ultimately led to me finding and developing my personal style of teaching. So over time, I was able to really foster, who I was as a professor and, start to, come up with my own ways of doing things. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that started to set in maybe like my second or third year teaching, where I was finally figuring out like who I was as a professor and the order that I wanted to present the materials, certain examples that I wanted to utilize. So, but I think
Right.
everybody needs to have mentorship. You have to have some type of guidance, or having some type of guidance always gives you a one up.
I have people who have nothing to do with my field, right? That's my mentor, right? I look at one of my mentors right now is Jack Thomas, and he just guides me along the way, just life and business, and just how to, kind of move up the ranks. Look at my other mentor, Wendell Garth, right? I've been knowing him since I was a freshman in college, right? And
Wow.
and those are people who aren't necessarily tied to what it is that I'm doing, but they're also mentors, right? They help to guide me along those ways along the way when I have questions or if I'm stuck, if I'm at a roadblock, you know and I think it's important, no matter how far you are in your career, no matter how much success you got up until this point, you need a mentor, right? I know some of the most successful people in their career and they have mentors, right? And I'll tell you something that's real important, right? One of my mentors said he even pays for mentorship. And I
Hmm.
think that's something that's overlooked, right? If you have to pay for mentorship, do it, right? Because it's well worth every penny, right? Sometimes, the mentors that you have aren't necessarily the people that you know, right? It's the people that you're able to connect yourself with. So it's important to kind of, attach yourself to those people so that they can guide you along the way.
I definitely agree. Like I said, I've had a lot of mentors, in my education career, but
Yeah,
then you also have role models as well. So, so
absolutely.
what's the overlap for you? Just out of curiosity, are your role models the same as your mentors?
Um, yes and no, right? So I'll give you an example, like Jack Thomas, right? I think he's my role model, right? Because I like what he stands for and his career path and everything. And he's also my mentor, right? But then you do just got people that's your role model, people that you look up to, that you admire for one reason or the other, right? But then you have those mentors who are in the field that you're in or not in the field that you're in. So they can be both or it can just be one separate entity.
Yeah, I agree. I like your answer because I do have two role models, as
Yeah.
I think about it, but I have like several mentors. I tend to think like role models
Yeah.
tend to encompass, who you are as an individual, whereas mentors really kind of help you in your professional development. And I think, just even aside from having a mentor, in order to grow, one of the first things that you need to do is be able to kind of change your mindset. So there's this book by Carol Dinswit. I'm probably mispronouncing her last name, but it's called
Okay.
The Growth Mindset. And she talks about how some people have this fixed mindset where they believe that, you know, they're not in control. They believe that some people are just naturally talented or that person is just naturally an entrepreneur. And then there's other people who have like this
Right.
growth mindset where you believe that you have the capacity to learn and grow your skills in whatever area it is. So a lot of people have problems getting from that fixed mindset to that growth mindset. Now,
Mm.
I know you have a growth mindset just based off of the conversations that we've
Yeah.
had, but
Right.
has it always been that way for you? Have you always seen yourself, you say like as a millionaire, but have you always seen yourself as like I can do whatever I want to?
Yeah, I think I'm one of those people where you say, man, he's a jack of all trades, right? And it's real because every time I see something that I'm interested in, like you said, I go all the way in. I give it my all because I know I can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's that growth mindset, right? Being able to, not be just okay with where you are in life, right? I'm always looking at more. I'm always looking at more opportunities. I'm never satisfied with where I'm at. And if I am satisfied, like Pam said, then there's the problem,
That is a problem, right?
right?
Yes,
It's,
I
it's a
remember her talking
problem.
about that
So
complacency.
yeah, yeah. I think if you complacent, man, I think there's an issue, right? I think it has a lot to do with fear. I think more people are scared to be successful than they are to fail.
Yeah, speak
And
a little bit more on that.
yeah, and I say that right because some people they're scared that they might just succeed, that what they work for might just happen, right? And that's a fearful thing because
So,
it's like, what do I do next?
okay, and I've heard somebody bring that up before, with
Yeah,
being fearful of succeeding. And my whole thing is like, isn't that the intention of what isn't that the reason why you're doing something to be successful? So I guess I have a hard time
yeah.
understanding why someone would be kind of fearful of succeeding.
Because you know why? Because it's the unknown, right? People don't know. They don't know what to do with success. Okay, I work hard. I became successful. What now? What if I lose it? Or now that I'm here, what's the next goal? Like people don't work their whole life to get to this certain level. And once they reach it, they have nowhere else to go. And they're fearful of that.
And that kind of ties back to something that Pam brought up in one of her episodes as well. She was like, after you hit one milestone, the next thing is like, what's next? And
Yeah.
one of my favorite quotes from Tom Brady, one of the most winningest
Mhm.
quarterbacks. They asked him like, which he has 6 championships. They was like, which one is your favorite? And his answer was the next one. So when you have
Right.
that type of mindset where you're constantly
Yeah.
looking towards the future and you're not satisfied with what you're at and you're constantly working towards that next goal, I think
Mhm.
it helps you to continue to, maintain that level of success.
Well, I know, I mean, and you probably know people too, right? That they're so scared that they don't even get started, right? They don't even get started on the goals that they're trying to, achieve because they're so fearful of it. I mean, why do you think that one is?
Uh, I mean, I think it's a fear of failure, a lot of times.
Okay.
Now, we talked about on previous episodes that, failure, put it like this. So a lot of people think that failure is the opposite of success, when in
Right.
actuality, failure is a part of the journey to success, in my opinion. You know, it takes
Yeah.
those setbacks to learn different ways to do things. I've done plenty of events, doing my photography or even my photo booths where
Yeah.
it probably wasn't the best, but I took something from it. And I'm sure you and your business ventures, there's been things that didn't turn out the way that you wanted to, where other people could write that off as a
Absolutely.
failure, but it's a lesson. So as long as it's serving as a lesson and you're getting something from it that you can apply to make future,
Hmm.
endeavors a little bit better,
Yeah.
then it's part of the journey. So I believe that if, people are able to kind of shift their mindset from having this negative connotation with failing, then they can find out that, that's part of the journey to success.
And I think in order to, to be successful, right, you got to surround yourself around the right people, period. Like there's no getting around that. It's like that old saying that goes like, if you hang around 5 millionaires, you'll become the sixth millionaire, right? So it's all about the circle that you keep.
And I
So
mean, I agree wholeheartedly because I think it's really important who you surround yourself with, because
yeah,
you can trick yourself to think that you're doing a lot just because you're doing more than the people around you, you know, and
yeah, right,
and that's real. So like I said, you want to surround yourself with people who are doing what you're doing or doing better than what you're doing. And Tempest even mentioned that on our last episode, where she was saying, you know, to be a more successful writer, she was surrounding herself with different types of individuals, people who are pouring into her. And you want to make sure that you're around people. And that's where, that networking even comes back into play. You want to get
yeah,
around people who are doing better or doing as well as you are, just because you're able to glean something from. I never want to be the smartest person in the room because I always want to be learning from other people.
And I can even bring it back to like my profession, right? Like I think I'm doing okay for myself, right? But there's people in my profession who's doing 30 times better than I am, right? And it's about me attaching myself to them and building that circle of people. Like you said, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. How can you grow if you are? And one of the things I kind of noticed as well, man, is that like every time I scroll through, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter or whatever, I notice that there's a lot more younger entrepreneurs. I mean, being a professor, have you noticed like that trend of younger entrepreneurs kind of coming on the scene?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I guess I got a story for each side, honestly. So I remember one
Yeah.
student approached me because they wanted to start a business, but they felt that they were too young. So I mean, I kind of shared with them that I did start my own business like when I
Yeah.
was in school as well. But I shared with them this quote from this book, and I think it's called "All Things Fall Apart," where the quote said, like,
Mhm.
if a child washes his hands, he can eat with kings. And my interpretation of that quote is that if you do the work and you're prepared, you
Yeah.
can run with the best of them.
Yeah.
It's age. A lot of people think like age doesn't disqualify you. Your work ethic will, but you can start
Right. Right.
you can start a business really at any age. You like Tippa said last week, you're never too young and you're never too old. But like for me,
Yeah.
and I
Agreed.
guess that actually even ties back into like one of the most rewarding parts of my job as a professor is seeing my students start their own businesses and then also people who are working in the corporate field. Like I have students like one of my former students, Dwight, he started his own clothing line. One of my former students, Lexi, she's always advertising these lashes because she has a lashes business. And then
Right.
I have other students who just work in the corporate field. Like um, one of my former students, Matt, he does auditing for the state of Illinois.
Okay.
Taryn and Antonisha, they're working in the corporate settings. So, like for me, one of the most rewarding things as a professor is seeing those students walk in the potential that you saw in them in the classroom. And it's just really good to kind of see that. But I guess to kind of tie it back in with like your original question,
Yeah.
yeah, I see a lot of people who are students, but they're ambitious and they want to start their own businesses and they have great ideas. And one of the things that really separates this next generation, from even our generation is they're able to figure anything out. I mean, you got the world at your
Yeah.
fingertips. Like,
Facts.
when we
Facts.
were a little bit younger, YouTube wasn't as popular, and you have YouTube University, which is a real thing now, where you
Yeah.
can pretty much learn just about anything online. So that's something that they have as a one up. And then, it's easy to, get into contact with people across the world. It's a lot easier, but I'm proud of a lot of the young people that I see who are starting their businesses and, doing their thing. And even people who are older, who are just now getting started with their business, because I think sometimes that's even a harder task than it is for somebody who's younger. Because if you're
Yeah.
older, you've been in your career for 10, 15 years, you can be complacent. But to take that next step and to try to venture out and do something on your own and, start
Mhm.
something, that takes a lot of courage and that takes a lot of risk as well. So no matter how old you are, young or old, it's really important to just kind of step out of your comfort zone and really do things that are uncomfortable if you're trying to ultimately, get to that level of success. Now,
Yeah.
we've been talking about stepping out of our comfort zone and growth. And you gave me an example earlier about, how you stepped out of your comfort zone. But what has been one area or an example of a circumstance or anything that's come up in your professional career so far that has allowed you to kind of grow in your career?
I think mine is simple, man. I think it's like everything that I talked about earlier. It really comes down to networking. Like I can't stress enough how powerful like networking has been for my career. I mean, if it wasn't for me putting myself in situations that create opportunities, like I probably would not have the success that I have today. Right. And I think that's the most important part. And what I mean by that is, you have to start creating opportunities, right?
Yeah.
There's never going to be that perfect opportunity. There's never going to be that that perfect situation. You have to create it, right? You got to put yourself out there. You got to put yourself in those circles that you normally wouldn't be in, right? To kind of get to that road that you want to get to. And for me, that's been like the key ingredient to my success to where I'm at today. I mean, I touched on it earlier, right? When I was talking about being uncomfortable, right? If it wasn't for me being uncomfortable and going out there, talking, shaking hands, kissing babies, like if it wasn't for that, like I would not be where I'm at today. And for real estate, like that just works out for me, right? So it's all about, it's a people's business. So networking is all about who you know and who knows you, right? That's what's going to make you successful. It's about how many hands you shake, how many, cards you give out. It's about that networking, So for you, it's totally different, obviously, right? So I even flip it for you. What is one of the most important lessons that you learn in your profession?
One of the most important lessons that I learned early on in my career was to really empathize with the students. And let me give you a quick example of how I learned that lesson. When I was teaching down there at Western, I had a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday class, and I had one student in particular who missed about 4 or 5 Fridays in a row. And down there at Western, Thursday nights is the party night, so I just figured he was just oversleeping
right.
and just out
Right.
partying, wasn't coming to class. So probably after the 5th time of him missing, he came up and asked for the notes. And I was like, you got to start coming to class, if you want to get the notes. And he was like, I would want to, but I've been having to go back home to Chicago for funerals. And this was 5 consecutive funerals that he had to go to for friends and family members.
Wow.
So that right there taught me, like, you really never know what people are going through. And I could have mischaracterized him, just, thought that he was a lazy student because he wasn't showing up. But you don't know the emotional trauma that he was going through, with a lot of his close friends, passing away up there. So in my career, that's one of the things that I always keep in the back of my mind, is you really don't know the struggles that these students are going through. And it's best to really empathize with them and to try to be an asset. These students 5 years from now probably won't remember my lectures on supply and demand. What they will remember is that I was really in their corner for them, and I was rooting for them, and I wanted them to be successful. And at the end of the day, as a professor, that's really the best that you can hope for. And that's a really somber note to kind of end this on, but let's go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I think one of the things that we should do, Glenn, is post on either Instagram or Facebook just to have some dialogue going around that topic of, people who might be, afraid of success, because I would really like to get some insight into that.
And be sure to go on our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, and comment below. And if you're listening, listen on Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
And this has been another episode of Whooping the Doctor Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.